Welcome back to another episode of Rev Academy. I know it's been so long. I know you guys have missed me, but I was bored. I'll be honest. I had nothing else to do. I didn't have anything to record. You know, training camp's going to start up soon, and I really didn't feel like talking to anybody about it. But I realized I can do some team previews. I could bring some special guests up here that are big in their teams, communities. So I got one here for you guys today, and this is going to be the third guest I have of you guys talking of them talking to me about another team. I had the 6-man show up here to talk about Orlando. I'll have another guest up here on Saturday to talk about Denver and a couple more next week. So without further ado, let's get him up here. Mr. Alex Hoops on Twitter. I don't know the rest of your stuff, so I don't want to say it wrong. So please tap in and tell them what you are.
It's Alex Hoops everywhere. YouTube, Twitter, and that's. I mean, I have an Instagram page, but I don't think I have a single post on there.
That is mad funny. But look, listen, I've seen your content. I've seen what you have in store. You have a great media going on. You talk about pretty much everything. You're pretty versatile, and I like that. I like that you keep it to where you're not bored, as I am bored. I know you heard I'm very bored a lot, so I love the versatility you have. Tell me, how did you get into the YouTube world?
So I started out, I graduated from college in May of 2020, which to those listening, graduating in May of 2020 sucked because everyone was graduating into a pandemic. But that was when I started. I had messed around with, I actually started off doing an Instagram page where I would post like NBA news, like the graphics that everyone makes memes out of now. I was one of those people who was posting those. So I did that for a long time. And then eventually I started writing. My background in high school and college, I have a marketing degree, but I was doing a lot of like video stuff with that. So I was writing about basketball. And then eventually, I was doing stuff with like Fansided. And if anyone who's ever written for Fansided knows, they don't pay particularly well. So I was like, I'm writing all these articles and I know how to edit videos. Why don't I just turn these articles into videos? And that's, Alex Hoops was born.
Okay, that's a dope ass story. I'm not even gonna sit here and say my story was any better. We all come from the same vibe. You said you graduated from college 2020, so that means you graduated high school 2016.
Yeah.
So you were a 2016 baby. Finally, I get somebody in my year. Here we go.
When did you graduate?
2016. We're here.
All right.
Yeah. All these people I have up here, they're either older or younger. It's nobody in the same age. It's kind of nasty. So where are you from?
I'm from. I went to college at University of Louisville, but I grew up in Kentucky. I spent my entire life in Kentucky, pretty much.
Okay, so Louisville, that 2020. So you were there 2019, 2018, 2017. Name some players. Talk to me.
Where do I start? Donovan Mitchell, Lamar Jackson. I watched Lamar Jackson's Heisman year. That was my freshman year of college. I actually ran into Donovan Mitchell at our rec center once. I walked by him and I did like a double take. I was like, "That's Donovan Mitchell," and I think he realized that I like recognized him, obviously, and he like shot me a head nod, and I was like, "Yeah."
Oh man, Louisville was on top of the world at that time. They was just Donovan Mitchell was just talking about it on the podcast with Carmelo. He was just like how they had him, Lamar, some females too. They had a great it was just Louisville was on top of the world at that time.
And then it all came crashing down. A lot of stuff happened.
Yeah. So wait, was Terry Rozier during your time?
He was about 3 years before my time because they vacated the title, but in 2013, that was the Montrezl Harrell, Terry Rozier, Russ Smith, all those guys.
Okay, yeah. He. I remember that team. I just didn't know if it was before you or after you. I remember that team was deep though. They had a nice little squad going on. So you're from Kentucky. You went to school in Louisville. Dope. That's a great college. Everybody knows that. How did you become a OKC fan? Like, walk me through how that path went for you?
So I mentioned pre-pod that everyone accuses me of being a Timberwolves fan. My initial basketball journey, quote unquote, of being like an NBA fan was my dad. My dad's side of the family is from Minnesota, and my mom's side of the family is from Oklahoma. My parents went to college in Oklahoma together, and that's how they met. But growing up, my dad was a Timberwolves fan during like the KG era and stuff. So I grew up watching a little bit. He kind of became like a little bit jaded with the NBA after the KG era and everything. That left a sour taste in his mouth. So he kind of stopped watching basketball, and I was like 9 years old at the time, so I kind of stopped watching basketball too. But then in 2009, OKC relocated from Seattle to OKC.
Right.
My mom's whole side of the family got like really into the NBA just because, we're all from OKC. We got to start watching the Thunder. And, it was a really easy transition to being an OKC fan. It's like, oh yeah, we got Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook,
Harden,
yeah. I hopped right on the bandwagon. I'm not ashamed to admit it.
Okay, it wasn't really Harden didn't get drafted yet, so Westbrook,
right.
KD, they weren't that good, so it really wasn't a bandwagon. You just kind of jumped ship and was like, well, I have a new team. OKC's here. All right, that's actually
worked out nice.
No, it worked out amazing. You've seen OKC is one of those teams where they may not have won the title, but you've seen a shit ton of success and a shit ton of great seasons. So, actually, you've just seen one recently. OKC getting the number 1 seed. SGA, another All-NBA odd. He is – let me start by saying this to people, and people who are real fans, they know. I've been a fan of SGA since Kentucky. That's my brother in Christ. I love him to death. He's one of my favorite players ever. He's just so smooth. And then when he got traded from the Clippers to OKC, I've always kept my tabs with OKC. I've always felt like a fan there. But, you being the OKC guy, this is your team. I want to talk to you a little bit about just OKC in a basket. You get the number 1 seed, SGA. Had an NBA season, 30 points a game again. Chet comes back. He plays a full season. He was great this year. J-Dub takes a leap. You have nice role players in Aaron Wiggins. You have nice role players in Isaiah Joe. You have a nice, solid Lou Dort. You have a nice, solid 8 to 9 man, maybe 10-man rotation. You get the 1 seed. You kind of walk through the Pelicans. No Zion. You wasn't too worried about it. You match up against Dallas. Dallas kind of had a late surge, a late run. They kind of played the Clippers, but Kawhi was in and out. He was unhealthy. Tell me your thoughts going into that series. How did you feel? How confident were you? Walk me through that moment in your life.
So I always make the joke that, there's a lot of Thunder fans who, and this is kind of the case for most fan bases, a lot of people have just blind faith in their franchise. So they're going to root for their franchise no matter what and be like, yeah, we're going to win it all. We're so good. In OKC, I can see how a lot of people kind of fell into that trap. Yeah, if you're going to be blinded by your fan base, OKC is the one to do it for, especially after last season. So I understand. But also, I went into that series going into the playoffs, the first round, I saw all I needed to see to be yeah, this is an amazing team. Mm-hmm. Maybe not good enough to win a championship, but this is a really, really good team on paper. Shea answered all the questions that I kind of had. The whole thing heading into the playoffs was is his type of scoring going to hold up in the postseason? That's the conversation everybody has when you have these low volume 3-point shooters, but they're just absolutely prolific scorers inside the arc. So, but do those kinds of players hold up in the playoffs? And after that first round series with Shea, I was like, yeah, I think Shea's going to be fine. He's not going to have any problem. But after that, heading into the Dallas series, I would have loved to face the Clippers. It's funny that we ended up facing Dallas because post All-Star break or post trade deadline, when they got PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford and all that, I was one of the people who was screaming from the mountaintops, this Dallas team is really freaking good. This team can absolutely make the finals. I think this team is insane. And I'm terrified of them. So going into that second round series, I was like, this is going to be hard. And honestly, the fact that we took them to 6, yeah, I would have loved to win the series. But given our flaws and how we matched up against them, I was like, you know what? Losing in 6, you learned what you needed to learn. I did not expect to win that series, and my expectations were met.
You were a PJ Washington masterclass away from potentially going to 7. I remember you guys blowing. I forgot which game you blew. You blew a nasty lead, though. I think what game was that?
I think it might have been game 4.
Yeah, it was a nasty lead. You were a big, and then the game 6, you had the SGA foul at the 3-point line. Ironic he ends this series like that. That really hurt. But yeah, you mentioned it. You guys, me coming in, I thought Dallas had to prove a little something because, both teams, because I felt like they didn't really get tested in the first round. The Pelicans didn't have Zion. B.I. was coming off an injury. And then with the Clippers, they had a couple moments from PG and Harden, but, you needed Kawhi kind of to be healthy to kind of make it any chance of a series. So coming into that second round, I had OKC winning. I had Denver coming out the whole thing. Then as the series was going on, I was kind of like, damn, like this Dallas team is kind of really good. Like they're not getting the best performances from Luka and Kyrie, and defensively, they've been locked the hell in. And then you saw, kind of J-Dub showing his age, Chet sometimes showing his age. That series ends. You have a good season. I wouldn't say it's a disappointment. I'd say it's a really good season. You did everything you needed to do. What were your questions going into the offseason? And after the draft and free agency, did they get answered?
Yeah, so for me, I think like a lot of Thunder fans, the biggest question was like the Josh Giddey question.
Shit.
Because like, here's the thing, and this is what frustrates me with Josh Giddey. Like a lot of people will look at his numbers and like on paper, if you don't watch a single game,
he's a good player.
You can trick yourself into looking at the numbers with Josh Giddey and being like, he played fine. What's everyone freaking out about? And it's like, if you watch, like it's not the fact that his threes were falling in certain games and people would be like, he shot well from three this game. It's like, yeah, but they lost every single minute he was in the game because they were targeting him on defense. The only reason he was making threes is because they were leaving him wide open, making it harder for anyone else to score, guys who are much more efficient scorers than he is. It's like the fact that he is shooting the ball so much is part of the problem. Even if the shots are going in, it's like, this just means our offense isn't firing on all cylinders. And I just, best of luck to him in Chicago. But I was like, we can definitely, even an addition by subtraction kind of situation where like this team, like you said, you mentioned like 5 role players.
Case Wallace. I didn't even mention Case Wallace.
Yeah, it's like you replace Josh Giddey with just having Case and Wallace play more minutes. It's like, yeah, that's one of the most efficient 3-and-D guards in the entire league. You're gonna start winning more minutes just by the simple math of like, oh yeah, you have a more positive player playing more minutes. And so the fact that got addressed pretty quickly, like the Alex Caruso trade came out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that's always fun with OKC is like they have one of the most tight-lipped organizations in the entire NBA. So this kind of stuff happens. It happens fast and it happens out of nowhere. And it's like, okay, sweet. That's taken care of. Next thing, rebounding. We got to get, the glass is a problem. I know people tried to do the whole thing where OKC makes up for their lack of rebounding by like turnover generation and stuff and taking care of the ball on the other end. And I get that to a certain extent, but you have to be able to, like, your defense can only be so good, but if you're not ending possessions, it doesn't matter like how, if your defense is getting a stop or forcing them into a miss, it's like, it only matters if you get the rebound.
Yep.
And then you can actually, take advantage of that. And so the rebounding, as much as people tried to kind of hand wave it and be like, yeah, this isn't a big deal. It's like, it is a big deal. It's something that absolutely has to be addressed. And then I don't think there's really a much better player that you can get to address that than one of the best offensive rebounders in the league, and Isaiah Hartenstein. It's like, oh, sweet. Perfect.
Yeah, and I think going back to the Giddey point, what did you think it would ever work? Like when you guys drafted him, was it ever a moment where you thought, all right, this guy could maybe potentially be one of our cornerstone pieces? And if it didn't, when was the moment you've noticed this is just a complete flop?
I would say it's actually kind of funny that not necessarily funny, but all the drama that happened with him during the regular season, I would say like 3 weeks before that happened, I was kind of like, hey, I don't know if anyone's paying attention to this, but Josh Giddey doesn't look really good. This is not working out very well. This is a clear problem. And then all of that happened, and everyone kind of came out of the woodwork and was like, yeah, Josh Giddey stinks. It's like, I don't know if he stinks, but it was a lot easier for people to be critical of him after all of that stuff happened. Yeah. And I was just kind of like, he may have success in Chicago. I wouldn't be surprised if he has success in Chicago, but I think Chicago is more equipped to give him the opportunities that he needs in order to realize that potential. And that was never, ever, ever going to happen in OKC because, quite honestly, like the rest of the roster just passed him by. It's like, yeah, Aaron Wiggins is probably a better player than Josh Giddey. Like, Case and Wallace is probably a better player than Josh Giddey. It's like all of these guys are coming up and you're like, we have to give Josh Giddey minutes instead of these guys. It's like, yeah, that's a tough sell. That's a really tough sell. So getting rid of him just made sense.
Yeah, and I think and I remember on the show we had a show, and a fan sent me like an Australian Josh Giddey jersey because I think he had a triple double stretch where there was that moment where he was having triple doubles, and he was like, "Yeah, Rev, he's proving you wrong," and I'm like, "He's gonna mess it up. I just want you to know that I'll sign this. I'll apologize, but this brother isn't good, and he's gonna show you eventually that he's not good." And it's funny because, I follow the draft and I follow college players a lot and overseas players. You guys drafted Nikola Topic, if I'm saying his name right. I hope I am.
I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, something like that. It's whatever, but he knows what we were talking about. He kind of has the similar weaknesses or like the similar scouting report to Josh Giddey. Also, he's going to miss the year because he hurt himself. He tore his ACL, I believe. How do you feel about him, or how do you feel about you guys going with another guard, a big guard, in this draft? Like, do you feel like you could have went a different, maybe not a player, but went a different route?
I'll start off by saying Sam Presti definitely has a type. Like he likes these kind of project, white guys. And I don't necessarily, relative to the crop of players that was available, I don't necessarily love the pick, but in the context of what OKC is doing right now, like, this is an upside pick. Mm-hmm. This is a pick where you're like, the best outcome for him is really, really, really good. And we can afford to kind of spin the wheels with all these draft picks where it's like, yeah, it's okay if this pick doesn't hit. We would certainly like it to, but if he takes a year off, I mean, they're fully equipped to make a deep run this upcoming season without him. Yep. And then next season, it's like, oh, if he comes into the picture and all of a sudden he's a great player, well, then you're even better than you were the year prior. So I understand the philosophy of the pick where it's like, okay, we're betting on the upside of this guy, the best version, the best outcome. If that happens, this team is even more stacked than it already is. But in a vacuum of just like the players that were available, I'm kind of like, there's some other guys that I would have liked, but I'm not gonna complain too much. The team's good enough to where I can live with this and just be like, yeah, whatever, fine. Yeah, Sam Presti has his type.
OKC really has the luxury of just being like, I'll be fucked up, but it's okay. Like, we'll literally, he might not even play, and we still will be fine. You got.
Well, that's one of the funny things. Is like, people talk about Sam Presti, like they always talk about his draft record, and I'm like, if you go back and look throughout history with OKC, Sam Presti's track record drafting is not as good as people talk about it sometimes. Like, there's a lot of misses. It's just OKC's had a lot of picks over time. And that's not to say he's not bad at drafting, but he's
gotten better.
He's gotten better, but there are some misses in there.
How long has he been there?
Oh, geez. As long as I can remember. He might have been there since.
Did he draft Hasheem Thabeet? This is going to tell me all I need to know about him. If he went and took that guy, Hasheem Thabeet, I have serious questions about this man. He was so bad. Oh, my God. And his name was dope. I thought he was going to be the best player in the world. Yeah, look that up, please. I legitimately thought this is the next, like, Embiid, bro. Like, or he's
been there forever.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, he drafted Hasheem Thabeet. All right. So, yeah. Okay. So, I get what you're saying. That was definitely a wild miss. Hasheem Thabeet had aura, though, for sure. So, you cool. You draft Topic. Sorry for messing your name wrong. But now you bring in Alex Caruso in what we all believe to be a steal of a trade because you essentially sent nothing for him in a probably, you think of OG, you think of Derek White, you think of Mikal Bridges, you probably think of Caruso as the next best high-level role player, if not maybe a little bit under, but he's one of the best role players in the world. Then you bring in Isaiah Hartenstein. You probably overpay a little bit for him. Talk to me about those moves, how you feeling about the contract you gave Isaiah Hartenstein, what these two can bring to your team, just your overall thoughts about it.
Yeah, Caruso, I mean, I think his resume kind of speaks for itself at this point. It's like, yeah, he's top 3, if not the best guard defender in the NBA. He can shoot now, which is like the big thing for me where I'm like, okay, all the complaints that you can have about, role players and their flaws. It's like Alex Caruso, for a guy who's going to be playing like pure complementary spot up shooter, maybe a little bit of supplementary passing and playmaking with predominantly bench units. It's like he's about as good as you can get. I would imagine he took 7.5 shots a night in Chicago. I would not be shocked if that goes down to like 4.
It needs to. That's insane.
Which is like, he was efficient. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, but why the hell? Damn, 7.5. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's like 10 points a game on solid efficiency. He shot well from 3, which like that's really the only thing that I'm with our role players. I'm like, just hit your threes. As long as your release is fast and you're willing to take them, then like teams are going to be less likely to help off of you. So I don't care. Everything else we can figure it out. Everything else with Caruso, it's just like, oh yeah, he is one of the best defenders in the league. He can hit his shots. And I think, I'm not going to sit here and try and sell people on like, oh, Alex Caruso is actually a pretty good playmaker. It's like, he's a fine playmaker. I like what he can do. Just like operating as a pick and roll passer. It's like, sweet. That's all we need you to do, man. And then the fact that we got Hartenstein, my whole thing was like, we don't have a guy who can throw lobs. And if there's one thing that Alex Caruso can do in the pick and roll, it's just, you can, if there's a big there, he can throw a lob, and he's going to be like the only guy on the roster who can do that.
OKC
and he's just a good veteran presence.
That's crazy. OKC really has nobody that can throw a lob.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is like, well, Josh Giddey could throw lobs, and it's like, he could throw lobs if they were like, yeah, well, also no one's treating him as a scorer. Like, they're just dropping against him every time because they know he's not going to go to the rim. Like, they'll live with his little floaters. It's like, that's fine.
Yeah, I hated those.
Oh, drove me nuts, man.
Oh my god, those are so wait, like, because me and Drew on our show, he's obsessed with Alex Caruso. He told me one time we were having a Rudy Gobert would you rather, or like we were just having a conversation about best players, defensive players, and he thought it was a bright idea to say I would take Alex Caruso over Rudy Gobert. And I was just like, bro, who do you think this guy is? Like, I get it. We hate Rudy. I understand why we hate Rudy. But at certain points where it's like you're putting a certain player that this is where the disrespect has to stop. Yeah. Like come on. Rudy's at what, worst, top 35 player in the NBA. Caruso is probably not like top 50. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah. And it also, like, I think more teams are going to benefit from Alex Caruso is a guy that, yes, every team would like to have an Alex Caruso. But in terms of like hierarchy of needs, more teams need a Rudy Gobert than they need an Alex Caruso. Like, Rudy Gobert is a defense, like, fresh out of the box. Like, it's top 15 defense, sweet. And there's teams that are sitting like 30th in defensive rating right now that are like, we take Rudy Gobert in a heartbeat.
No, yeah, it's truly crazy. And I think what's the most important part about this, because plugging from Rudy to now Hartenstein, is Hartenstein had the best year of his career. I mean, with the New York Knicks, Jesus Christ, when they put him in the starting lineup, he was amazing. I mean, offensive rebounds, his handoffs were awesome. You set an amazing. He was doing everything you want to do or everything you need from a big man. And I hate people who devalue screens and they devalue lobs. It's like, bro, he's
preaching to the choir, man.
It's a big man. I don't need him to dribble. I don't want him to dribble, as a matter of fact. I need you to get this handoff to my shooters, roll correctly, roll in the right. Some people don't understand that rolling takes skill. Like, you need to roll in the proper position. You need to roll at the right time. Some people don't roll correctly. That's the problem with players like James Wiseman. They don't know when to roll, when to pop, when to set their feet, when to plant themselves. It's really like insane how they don't know this stuff and they're so big. But Isaiah Hartenstein knows how to do that all. Great offensive rebounder. How does he fit and mesh with a player like Chet, with a team that likes to run 5-out offense, 4-out offense? Like, where does he plug in? And apparently I saw this report that he might be starting with Chet. So that's something that's going to be interesting. So how does he fit in with his offense?
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned the screening and the rolling stuff. That's one of my biggest complaints with OKC last year offensively was, like, I don't have the access to this data because it's one of those, like, pieces of tracking data.
Energy and shit.
Yeah, second spectrum. It's like, I don't have access to that crap. But if I had to guess, OKC would be towards the bottom of the league in, like, screens set by a big man because Chet don't get me wrong, like, the screening he does is useful, but in an entirely different way, where he's doing a lot of, like, coming up and setting a screen and then popping, or he's just slipping the screen entirely. He's not setting a ton of hard screens where like Shea is basically guaranteed to create an advantage. And that's one thing that, like, there wasn't really anyone on the roster that could do that well. And Hartenstein, you said it. It's like he's going to be able to step up on those screens and set a hard screen where Shea is like guaranteed to be able to start getting downhill. If teams are switching, he'll probably be able to get a favorable matchup onto a less mobile big, depending on the team. It's one of those things where it just makes so much sense, and it's also one of those things that was just glaringly obvious if you watched OKC. It's like, hey, they don't really set a ton of screens. They're like a lot of ghost screens, which the nice thing is we see that these ghost screens can work where it just allows Shea to shoot out of a cannon and get going downhill. And it opens up so much space because you're just guaranteed to lift a defender out of the inside of the arc. And now I'm excited for all the opportunities when teams start throwing aggressive coverages at Shea where, okay, they know that Shea's going to be trying to get downhill. So all of a sudden they're going to start throwing hedges at him. They're going to start blitzing him. They're going to start trapping him. And then all of a sudden, the other amazing thing with Hartenstein is he is a fantastic passer on the short roll.
Yep.
And Shea's going to be able to hit those. Hopefully, I hope he's locked in a gym right now. Just but you think about that, and you have floor space. You've got Chet in the corner. You got J-Dub in the other corner. If teams start sending these tags off of weak corners, it's like, yeah, Hartenstein's going to hit that pass 10 times out of 10. Defense is all of a sudden in like really, really dangerous rotation. And that's what OKC lives off of, is just like, we're going to get you in rotation. And it's just a matter of if our guys are going to be able to knock down their shots, and everyone's going to be able to knock down their shots.
Yeah. That
in theory.
Yeah,
in a perfect world.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I think OKC has probably the biggest potential in the league. They just have so much young talent and so much room to grow. And even with Mark Daigneault, I hope I'm saying it right. I'm really not good with names, but perfect. Yep. Okay, we're good. Even Mark Daigneault, he's a young coach. He's a young coach that came into this league a little bit young with this team, growing with this team, and them bursting on the scene. Wow. But I think with Hartenstein, what he brings, I mean, he is one of those he's a true traditional. I don't need the rock in the post. He even got the little floater. If you coming down, he sets the screen. You get him off you get the player on your back. He rolls. You hit him. Short floater. He's amazing at the little short floater. And like you mentioned, SGA needs to be locked in that gym in the passing department, because he used to be able to pass. I don't know what happened. I literally don't know what happened. He just is like, nah, like I just stopped working on it, I guess. But I hope he's definitely locked into the gym. So now, J-Dub, talk to me about what you expect from him next year.
So it's funny because everyone just like jumped the gun a little bit with all the talk about him. They were like, yo, he's a top 20 player. I'm like, guys, we don't have to do this right now. We can wait. What's the rush?
Sorry to cut you off, but I think one of our first few interactions was somebody said J-Dub was top 20, and you were like, hold the fuck on. Like, let's let him improve. And I was like, thank you. Like, I was like, Jesus Christ, bro. People, and I'm a Paul George fan. I get he didn't have the greatest playoffs, but damn, like, can we just relax just a little bit, please?
So my expectation now is J-Dub better be a top 20 player this year. But no, he's another situation where, the expectation, what you drafted him thinking he was going to be, at least from my perspective. Obviously, I'm sure the war room on draft night saw what he is now when they were looking at him as a prospect. They were like, yeah, this dude is going to be exactly what he was last year. But from my perspective, we drafted him. I'm like, cool, he'll be fine. He'll be a fine role player. And then season starts, he looks way better than expected. Everyone's like, he should be rookie of the year over Paolo. I'm like, all right, let's slow down a little bit. Then the year after, he keeps getting better. Everyone's like, he's a top 20 player. I'm like, all right, everyone, let's relax. Next year they're gonna be saying he's gonna be MVP. So
that's how it's going right now.
But I just think that he has simultaneously more potential than most people realize, but also not as much as people seem to be throwing at him. Like,
some people
are like, he's got all NBA first team ceiling. And I'm like, so you're calling him basically MVP caliber? Like, come on, what are we doing here? And I love him, but he's like going to be just the perfect second option, I think.
Nothing wrong with that.
Maybe he's one of those guys who you could look at maybe at some point in his career, you'll be like, yeah, he would be a good first option on another team. But I think in the context of OKC, he's going to be the perfect second option just because his skill set is so just so sound. He's another guy that I look at with the 3-point shooting, and I was like, yeah, he's a pretty efficient 3-point shooter, but the volume's kind of low. So, we'll see how that looks going forward. And then this year he kind of increased the volume a little bit. The efficiency looked good. So I think next year it's just going to be about, how much can they get out of him offensively as an offensive focal point? Because the big thing last year was they would start fourth quarters with Shea on the bench, and J-Dub was just the guy. They were like, yeah, we're giving J-Dub the ball, and do whatever you want. Like, you can shoot 50 mid-range shots if you want. Like, go for it. You have ultimate green light first 6 minutes of the fourth quarter. Just go crazy. And he was doing that, and like, I don't remember exactly what the numbers were, but I was looking up some of the numbers for him, just like per 75 possessions in fourth quarters when Shea's on the bench. And it was like, oh yeah, 29 points on like 60% true shooting. It was just like ridiculous stuff.
What the fuck?
Yeah. So, and again, it's one of those things where you look at and you're like, how much of this is noisy because it's against bench units, yada, 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 whatever. The talent is very, very clear. And now it's just like, how much more can you get from here? Like, just incrementally increasing his offensive burden until things start to go down and you're getting diminishing returns. But for now, I'd say it looks pretty good.
So yeah, J-Dub definitely has that rookie. Like, the hype keeps getting bigger, so MVP conversations will definitely be had next season. It's only a matter of time. But you guys have a nice collection. You have the SGA, he's about 26, 27, 25, whatever it is. Then you got the two new guys in Chet, J-Dub. So it's a nice, beautiful trio. Love it for you guys. Love that they fit so seamlessly together. You have the perfect collection of role players. We mentioned something before. We were talking about how you guys are a great defense, but sometimes you tend to not grab that rebound, finish the possession. Minnesota is another team that defensively, I think they're one of the best defenses in the league because they finish possession. They get that rebound, they lock in defensively. You now have Hartenstein, you have Chet. You're still, I don't want to say lacking, but your backup big is a little spotty for sure. Jalen Williams, I like him, but sometimes he can be very inconsistent. Going into this year, do you expect Caruso and Hartenstein to improve this defense to already what it was? Because I know you can be a top defense, but you cannot be a playoff elite defense. I know that we know it's a completely different thing. We know Lou Dortz is one of the best defenders in the world, but sometimes he can be a little bit aggressive. He could fall asleep off ball. And then if the 3-point ball is not falling, it's like, fuck, we're kind of shitting our luck here. So what can you see, like, defensively? Do you see another level that you guys can get to with these two new players, or do you expect the same thing?
I think there's a new level that they can get to for sure. I saw an article, and it was a good article. I'm not trying to diss the person there. I forget who wrote it, but it was a good article. But they were basically like, OKC is going to be the best defense in NBA history next year, or something like that.
Okay. All right.
And their reasoning was good. Like, a lot of, everything made sense. It was one of those things where, like, the headline looks crazier than the actual contents of what the article says. And it was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is all very reasonable stuff that you're saying. But I just think that the issues with the defense for me were predominantly off ball. And that's kind of something that can happen when you're a team that kind of hangs their hat on turnover generation. Is when you're gambling a lot, you have to rely more on your off ball defense. And that's obviously not as easy to get away with when you've got, Josh Giddey, Jalen Williams as your low man, stuff like that. That's situations where you look at it and you're like, okay, we're good at generating the turnovers, but when we're not able to generate the turnovers, things start falling apart. And Caruso's a great off-ball defender. I mean, I think off-ball defense isn't necessarily as important for guards as it is for bigs and bigger wings. But Hartenstein, that's where you look at him and you're like, oh, yeah, he's like one of the best off-ball defensive centers in the league, particularly last year. And like, I don't like to get too bogged down on advanced defensive metrics, but I know a lot of people saw that Isaiah Hartenstein was like, according to defensive EPM, he was like the best defensive center in the NBA last year. That was a situation where I was like, okay, he's not the best defensive center in the NBA, in my opinion, but I understand why this number is as high as it is. And it's because he just cleans up so much and makes up for so many mistakes. And OKC makes a decent amount of mistakes just by the nature of how that defense operates, where there's a bit more gambling going on. And so now you can kind of live with that. You can honestly probably double down a little bit on that gambling identity where you're like, yeah, Shea is going to go for every steal. And, you know, if he gets burned now, it's like, okay, well, we got Hartenstein there. We got Caruso, who's probably going to dig. We've got plenty of nail help with Dort there, and J-Dub's a big wing. His wingspan's ridiculous. And then there's Chet, who can operate as a super solid weak side rim protector. It's like, oh, yeah, everything's built to cover for itself and build upon. It's not a situation where I feel like OKC changed as much. Like, I think some people are expecting this big schematic change, and it's like, no, I think they will be doing more of what they were doing last year, but now they're going to be able to get away with it more and live with some of those, you know, the holes that they had aren't going to be as noticeable anymore.
And do you think vice versa on the offensive end? Do you see a big change?
I see a significantly bigger change on the offensive end than I do the defensive end, for sure.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because you're definitely running a different. It's just Isaiah and Chet aren't the same big man. It's just what it is. So yeah. you're moving Chet to the 4, which I think he is a 4 anyways. So it's definitely different going into next year. Now you got some teams. You got Denver, who, if you have the Joker, that's still going to be a tough matchup for you guys. Minnesota with their 2 big man lineup, I think you're more prepared for that this time. Dallas got better. They beat you guys and got better. So that's still a matchup that's going to give you some nightmares like it did before. I'm missing – you still got the Lakers. You still got to always respect LeBron and AD. And I felt last year, even though they were a low seed, that would have been a tough matchup for you guys regardless, because AD is a problem. He can protect the rim. He's one of the best defensive players in the league. I'm missing – Phoenix is still going to be always around. It's just a team hanging around. You got the Pelicans if they're healthy. They don't have a center, though. It's kind of weird. Where do you see you guys going next year? Like, what are the expectations going into next season? It's my final question. I really want to get a real legit answer for this, like something deep, because I just feel like with this team, there's so many possibilities. But a team with this much expectations can either come with parity, it can come with disappointment, it can come with hanging the trophy up. Like, it's so much that can happen. It can come with the injury-riddled season. So I want to know, like, what's your expectations for this season? Regular season, playoffs, individual players, MVPs, anything. Like, talk to me.
So last season, or I guess prior to last season, I was one of the Thunder fans when everyone was being like, oh, we're going to be a top 4 seed. I was like, again, let's pump the brakes. Like, I don't know why we're getting ahead of ourselves here. We haven't even seen this. We haven't even seen Chet play yet. Let's relax. This year, I'm going into this season saying they should be the 1 seed. Like, I don't, if they were the 1 seed last year and they got better, I don't see why they wouldn't be the 1 seed this year. It just wouldn't make any sense. Something would have to go wrong. And I mean, they're at the point now, I think, they made the play-in, obviously not last year, but the year prior to that, they made the play-in. That was kind of like all right, let's see what we got. Last year was okay, we're making the playoffs for the first time, so let's see how this goes. They made the second round. That's pretty good. I mean, to me, it's championship or bust.
There we go.
They got to win a championship.
There we go.
I'm going to be – I hate this because it's been nice being an OKC fan for a while now since Russ's MVP season. It's not like the expectations have ever been super high except for, the Paul George and Melo years where that feels like a fever dream now. But, I've enjoyed being a low-stakes Thunder fan. But now, they got to win a championship. And obviously the biggest question to me is the Celtics, because that team is just historically insane. That team scares the daylights out of me. But, I think this team – depending on how development goes with some of the younger guys, I think this team on paper can compete with the Celtics. I don't see any reason why the Celtics would be able to go into that. I think last year's Thunder potentially would have put up more of a fight than Dallas did.
Yeah, it's all matchup dependent, yeah.
I think this year, OKC, if it was OKC and Boston in the finals, I think OKC would have a perfectly reasonable shot of winning. I don't see why they couldn't win that series.
Yes, Alex, talk your shit. Talk. No, listen, I think everything is matchup dependent, and I think Dallas was a very, very, very bad matchup, especially when like Boston. Jason Tatum said it the other day. He was just like, we thought we were seeing Denver. We thought that was the series. I think we all last year collectively felt like Denver and Boston was going to see each other in the finals, and it did happen. You know, Denver choked badly. But Jason Tatum even knew it. Like, Denver's our bad matchup. And now I'm looking at an OKC team, matchup for matchup. I can see it. Like, it's there. Like, the visual is there. So it's like, it's just about the internal growth along with the guys and Hartenstein and Caruso making it work. I never thought Dallas had a chance. So that's definitely interesting. And I like that. I like that answer because I feel like with OKC, you mentioned it, there's no reason why they shouldn't be aside from injuries. There's no reason why they shouldn't be a number one seed. Like, they're just above and beyond the best team in the West, just from a regular season standpoint. Like, I love Dallas. I love let me not say I love Dallas. I don't love Dallas, but I love the all-season moves they made. But I think they're more built for the playoffs. I think regular season-wise, young, gritty, OKC, it makes sense. Do you think SGA can get MVP this year? If he didn't get it last year,
yeah, and I would be surprised if he statistically puts up like the same ridiculous numbers that he does this year just by nature of the team getting better. Obviously, your team gets better, your numbers are going to go down. I feel like it's probably going to be Luka's year.
It's about time. Like,
we've been saying it for what, like 6 years now? Everyone's like, oh, next year's Luka's going to win MVP. So here we are 7 years down the road. Like, Luka's going to win MVP. It's like, yeah, we've been saying that forever now. Like, come on. Well, I guess it's only 6 years, something like that. But
do you think, is it Tatum's year?
Man, people do not like Jason Tatum.
Yeah, he's hated, man. Do you like Jason Tatum?
Well, that's the thing. Like, I don't like or dislike. Like,
I
don't know why people hate Jason Tatum. So, like, they hate, and I guess it's the Boston sports thing. Like, everyone hates Boston sports because, you know, it's Boston sports. It's like, y'all have won so much. Like, what are y'all complaining about? But you know, Jason Tatum, it's like, yeah, I don't have a problem with him. He's just, you know, he's a good player. He has his flaws like everyone else. Is he like the best player in the league? No, but he's really good. Really good.
I don't hate him. It's easy. I'll say this. He's the easiest superstar to joke on by far.
Yeah, for sure.
He is the easiest superstar where you can just throw memes at him, joke about him. It's him and Embiid. Like, they're just back and forth. You can make all the jokes in the world. And I think the interesting part about Tatum, he talked about it a couple of days ago, like how if you look at my resume stacked up with LeBron, Steph said, and it's the shit we be talking about, because it's like, why do you do this to yourself, bro? Like, it just, when Steph was 27, he was a 2-time MVP. One of them was unanimous. He had a championship, brother. So it's like, you can't keep doing this to yourself. And I get it. All NBAs are cool. All-stars are cool. We don't really care about all-star games anymore. But,
no,
brother, you just can't put just like, what? Then you texted Kobe. That's really when it started. The Kobe stuff was when it's like, and then he played like shit. It was like, here we go.
And I don't like, none of that stuff is like stuff that bothers me, but it's like you said, I understand why people clown on it. It's like, come on, man, you know, you're doing this to yourself. Like, you don't have to. You can pull a Kawhi and just not say anything. Like, it's okay. Word. You didn't have to write a children's book. Like, come on.
Yeah, even in Kawhi, like, he gets hated, of course, but like, he doesn't say anything, and you just kind of like PG. Him and Paul George are the same human. I don't care what anybody says in terms of like game style, the way they act, the way they choke, the way they say things. It's literally bar for bar. Like, PG is another one who he says things in the media, and you're like, dude, shut up. Like, just
my theory with Paul George is it all started with, I don't know if you remember this, but that Gatorade commercial where he was like, ball game. That's where that was the first time where everyone was like, anytime he would miss like a late game shot, they would pull up a clip of that Gatorade commercial and start clowning on him.
Was that around the same time he kept calling himself Playoff P?
Yeah, roughly.
Yeah, he should have never said that. He said Playoff P and then went to the playoffs. Then the way off P joke started coming off. It was definitely a torture. But Alex, I want to thank you for coming up here. I want to thank you for giving me some love. I appreciate that. You know, I want to say I watch your content, love what you do. I just started watching it last week when I hit you up. Some good stuff, the short videos too. So my attention span is really short. So I can really get through them and I can really watch them. I love what you do. I see you got Randy Moss back there, and I see you got Michael Jordan. Is Minnesota your football team?
Oh yeah, dude, I am a diehard Vikings fan. You can find pictures of me from when I'm like 3 years old in like full Vikings regalia. Like, okay, I love the Vikings.
I'm not a football podcast, but I definitely have to ask, how do you like about your Minnesota Vikings? How you feel?
Dude, I'm ready to get hurt again. Like, this is what the Vikings do. They build up my hopes and then they tear them right down. I mean, the best sports experience I've ever had as a sports fan my entire life was the Minneapolis Miracle, that Stephon Diggs catch in 2017, man. That was amazing. And then immediately after in the NFC Championship game, they get absolutely just by the Eagles.
I'm a Philly fan, brother. I know we had dreams and nightmares playing. It was done for you guys. Once the game was like, it was bad. Like,
people, they were greasing up poles and stuff. I was like, we're screwed.
I think Meek Mill was at the game. I think it was Robert Kraft, I believe. It was somebody else there. It was so many people at that game from Philly that was so important. It was just like, no way they can lose this game.
Dude, I gotta say this. That clip that somebody posted from Pick a Side of you going off on Joel about Jalen Hurts.
Oh yeah,
that's one of the funniest clips I've seen, like sports-related clips I've seen probably all year. I was dying laughing at that.
Yeah, I don't know why he hates my guys, man. It's really a bad vibe. Like, and then he loves all these other teams, and I just can't get it. I just don't understand why you love the Seattle Seahawks. It boggles my brain. But whatever, like, you can like them, like they don't do anything, but sure. But yeah, I have too many of those clips where I crash out. I have to limit that. I try to limit that.
It's content, baby.
And it don't even be on purpose. I try to limit it for football, but it's like he got me there, and I'm just like, I can't take this shit anymore. This guy's just a hater. But I had to take about Minnesota. It was more about Jettis, because Jettis is my favorite player ever. And I was like, Jettis is going to finish top 3. And he's not going to be 3. And I said that, and people were very, very upset. And I get it, the nostalgia of Randy Moss and T.O. and Jerry Rice is untouchable. I get all that. But look, what Jettis is doing in his first 3 to 4 seasons, it's unprecedented. Like, this dude is so good at it. Like, I really genuinely believe in my heart there's a gap between him and Tyreek Hill. I really like it genuinely in my heart. I believe when you line them up, and you try to figure out what they can do, Jettis can just do everything. Like, there's nothing. He always is open. Tyreek, he cool. He can run fast. You know, that's dope and all. But Jettis, man, that's my brother.
Dude, he's incredible. And I mean, I don't think you can have a better coach for Justin Jefferson than Kevin O'Connell. Oh, and perfect. It's like, this team is it's ridiculous. I'm starting to believe that, like, this team is legit. Everyone's calling them contenders now. I'm like, yeah, we are contenders. Why not? Let's do it.
maybe like, okay, like, you beat the Niners. You beat the shit out of Houston. So maybe it's like you beat Green Bay, then it's like, all right, wait a minute. We talk myself into it. It's
going to piss me off.
Because I feel like when you guys had the 13-3 team with Kirk, and you lost to the Giants, your defense wasn't good, but now your defense is legit. Your offense is cool. So it's like, you can figure your way out of it. But I do feel like I do want to thank you, Alex, for coming up here.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, of course, tag you, man. Tag your stuff.
Alex Hoops on YouTube, at Alex Hoops _ on Twitter, and that's it. That's all I got.
I'm crying. You have the same thing for everything. That is hilarious. Alex, thank you for coming here. I want y'all to, don't forget, follow Alex Hoops, Rev Academy. We got Fantasy Reaction. We got Pick a Side. We got the Weekly Blitz, the new show with Joel Moran. Thank you guys for being up here. Thank you guys for watching, and y'all have a good day.